What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out the big freeze of 1963. I believe this is probably the #1 most requested weather-related topic that I see people suggesting in the comments section of all our weather-related videos.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Over the last couple of months, we've done a number of videos about winter weather within the UK, specifically the Beast from the East. Then we saw something about, I believe it was the freeze of 2009, if I'm not mistaken. And we saw a little bit about this year's winter weather.
Yeah,
but
in flooding and
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But in every single comment section we get, you have to check out the winter of 1963. So that's what we're going to be checking out today, guys. Don't really know anything about it, but I have heard this may be the coldest UK winter on record.
Really?
I'm not 100% sure of that. I've just seen that mentioned.
Oh my goodness.
So anyways, guys, this is fairly long, so we're going to go ahead and jump into it and check out the big freeze of 1963.
Now it's Siberia.
Siberia. Oh my goodness, is that snow?
Work
It looks like a
for
wall.
82 years, more to come.
Oh my goodness.
Holy.
Is that a train?
Britain
Yeah.
is snowed to a standstill.
Wow.
Babies in
Oh,
man.
This looks so much older than 1963.
No, that's
Doesn't
about
it?
right. No, I think this
It's
is what it looked
Britain's
like.
most costly winter.
1963.
Wow.
Most costly winter.
It's chaos. The great power scandal.
The
Day
great
34
power
of the
scandal.
freeze up?
Oh,
They must have
man.
been talking about electricity.
Yeah.
Ooh.
For London, it was the coldest January since records were first kept in 1841. For
Wow.
Manchester, it was the coldest since records were first kept in 1888. For Aberdeen, it was the coldest since at least 1895. For Southampton,
Oh my
Bognor
goodness.
Regis and Worthing,
It does look
it
like
was the coldest
Siberia.
since their records
Really
were
does.
started in 1900.
Oh my goodness.
When you've been through the sort of weather we've all endured for these last 7 weeks, there's some
7 weeks.
gratification in knowing that it's been more than just bad weather. This one has already earned its place among the 5 most spectacularly bad winters of the last 100 years. It will go down in history and folk memory as that terrible winter of 1963. The events of it have hit us in a series of nasty, cold, isolated chunks. But if you put them all together, they form a continuous and developing story. It is this story we're now going to tell. By the way, when we talk of temperatures, we'll be using the old Fahrenheit scale.
So I wonder when that switched over, by the way. When did Britain
Yeah.
switch over from Fahrenheit to Celsius? But did you notice he's talking in the past tense? So I'm wondering how much later
yeah.
this
It
was
doesn't
made.
seem like it was that
It couldn't
long
have been.
after.
There's no way this was the 70s. This still had to be like very
Yeah.
soon after this happened.
Yeah.
The big freeze began on December the 22nd. On December the 24th, Christmas Eve, the BBC's 1 o'clock news bulletin said this: "It is snowing heavily in parts of Scotland, and Glasgow will be having its first white Christmas since before the war. In
Wow.
southern
Oh my
England, there is a
goodness.
chance of snow, but it won't be becoming before Boxing Day." The forecast was right, and for most of Britain, the 26th of December turned out to be everything a Boxing Day should be. The snow came down and lay where it fell, and the holiday was somehow complete. The new white world created in the night was something to be enjoyed for the sake of Christmas. Snow-covered buses still ran, and there was no reason to think that this was anything more than just another cold snap, like last year or the year before. If from our fire force the whole thing was just perfect, the more the better. Now this was beginning to look something like a winter.
Isn't it crazy? Kids are always the same, no matter when they were born.
Yeah. Or where.
Yeah, or where.
Every sledge and toboggan was out, and those who hadn't even a tea tray made do. This was a holiday. Although it may seem fantastic now, far from spoiling the fun, for most people the snow just completed it.
So far, the snow was fun. Mercifully, all the thousands of parents and children who built snowmen on Boxing Day didn't realize that they would still be there in February.
Oh my.
Oh.
We had that we were in for something exceptional came the weekend after Christmas.
Before the first snow had even looked like melting, in fact, while most of it was still lying where it had fallen, there came another and even greater blizzard.
Oh my.
It was the worst blizzard for 15 years, and in southern England, the worst avalanche of snow in living memory.
Wow.
Ooh, I can feel that from here.
Yeah, I know. This looks really chilly. The black and white makes it even
Again,
look
it
colder.
was the southwest
Yeah.
that bore the brunt, but it swept all the south and east of England.
Oh, that was a
was
sign.
Nearly
Look
90
at
miles an
that.
hour, and it was
Did you see that?
bitterly cold.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Why are they walking on the side of the road like that?
Well, they got to get from point A to point
The
B.
wind was so cold that the sea froze on the Essex coast. In places, temperatures
The
went
ocean
down to
froze?
19 degrees. It was in this blizzard that 3 people died battling against the snow, and 2 more were suffocated in a snow bath.
Oh my goodness.
Jinx. Man, that wind.
Yeah.
With this blizzard on top of the heavy Boxing Day fall, there were now drifts of 15 and 20 feet.
Oh,
my
Motorists
goodness.
were advised to take no journeys whatsoever. Not
15 and 20-foot snow drifts.
And this is just this little second round of whatever's going on.
That is massive. That is crazy.
even essential ones. Hundreds of villages were isolated.
Oh my goodness.
And so were towns like Weymouth, Oakhampton, Tavistock, Bridport, and Blandford. Dartmoor was like Siberia.
Wow.
The prison
It
and
looks like
Princetown
it.
were cut off for days. By the time this blizzard had finally blown itself out, 200 main roads were impassable and 95,000 miles of road was snowbound. The
Holy.
dislocation of Boxing Day.
Oh my
That would be
goodness.
scary. I'm surprised
Wow.
they were able to clear the road that well.
That's a lot to clear out.
Yeah.
Had become the chaos of New Year's Eve.
Oh, is that the bus?
1962 went
Or
out
like a
with the
van?
southern half of Britain
Oh my
littered with abandoned
goodness.
cars.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
How did that happen? Man.
With the lumber storm.
In the last few weeks, most of Britain's motorists have gained a lifetime of experience of driving in snow.
That's
The
a
Boxing Day
devil's
snow
elbow.
had caused bad enough blockages, but that had been at holiday time. Now we were shivering to work again, and a way had to be cleared for essential supplies, lorries to docks and factories and shops, routes for buses and
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
But the residential roads, the roads where most of us live, they didn't have that sort of priority. By now, the pedestrian, like the motorist, has had plenty of experience in coping with snow and ice.
So were they saying that the residential roads where people lived were the ones that weren't getting cleared?
Yeah,
That's
they were
interesting.
trying to clear routes for trucks
To get goods around.
supplies and all
Yeah,
that.
that makes sense.
That
then.
was the priority, yeah.
Okay.
We've learnt the hard way. To add insult to injury,
High heels?
many
Was that high heels?
dustbins weren't emptied for 3 weeks. We discovered that our dustmen were also the road-clearing party. This was the result. We were even accused of causing a milk bottle crisis by hiding our milk bottles in the snow. Finally, after 5 days battling, milk roundsmen had to take the day off from exhaustion, and 15,000 London housewives went without milk.
Wow, look at
Oh
the
my
milk
goodness.
The worst area hit by the blizzard was the southwest, where all
Really?
the
Surprises
roads were
me.
blocked. In fact, the
That is surprising.
A39 from Linton to Porlock here was blocked on December the 30th and is still blocked to this day. It was a similar story of abandoned vehicles and snowbound roads in Wales and the Midlands. And of course, the M1 did keep open throughout the road from London up to Birmingham and Coventry and the Midlands, although it was reduced to single-lane traffic on occasions. Now, except for the A681 up here, the Todmorden to Baker Road, all roads crossing the Pennines closed at some time or another. The Snake Pass, the A57, which goes from Sheffield to Gossip, was blocked then and is still blocked now, and it will be 2 weeks before they make any attempt to clear it because of the great walls of snow. Scotland, of course, was badly hit up here. The A939, for example, which goes from Cockbridge to Timontoul, and the A941 from Dufton to Rhynie, the roads there are blocked and have been blocked for some 50 days so far this winter.
50
Like me,
days?
motoring down in the southeast of England, it's been almost as bad. During the days of the big blizzard, so few cars reached London from the outlying areas that the parking meters, usually crowded in central London, went begging. It was estimated that only 1 in 10 were in regular use. The tracks disappeared under drifts of snow, but the trains miraculously kept moving.
Wow.
Or at least most of them did. But points
surprised
froze
by that.
everywhere.
Yeah,
and in many
seeing
places,
how deep it
rolling
was.
stock froze solid and refused to move. There were casualties. In Lancashire, a signalman collapsed and died in the cold on his way to work.
Wow.
What?
On Boxing Day, 18 people were killed and 30 injured when the Scottish Express in a snowstorm ran into the back of a slow train at Crewe.
Oh,
On all
man.
regions, trains were cancelled or delayed. In many cases, it was a matter of waiting for the ploughs to get through.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
That
On
is
top of
He just went right through
conditions,
that.
the demands on the railways got even heavier than usual. In badly hit areas, trains were often the only form of communication. Men worked all day and all night to keep branch lines clear. These lines
I
already
wonder what they were
fighting
just
against
doing. Were they
redundancy,
using air
suddenly
or
became
water?
vital links.
or heat.
Trains
heat,
were
yeah.
diverted. Birmingham
Well,
to London
heated
went
air.
via Oxford. Expresses were cancelled and schedules thrown out of the window.
Wouldn't make sense
Up
to
in
use water,
Scotland, the
I would
main line
think.
between Edinburgh and Carlisle was blocked by an avalanche a quarter of a mile long.
An avalanche?
Wow.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, speaking of avalanches,
Mm.
I saw, I don't know if it was on Facebook or what, there was, you know, the shorts that people make and post. There was one, I forget where it was, but they were driving on the train and
Oh, I know.
the
I've seen that.
snowbank,
Yeah,
just
I saw that.
like an avalanche was coming towards
Yeah.
the train.
I don't remember what that was.
And the kid was like, "Oh, what is that?" Or like, "Look at that!" And the mom
Yeah.
was just like, "Oh."
And then it hit the train. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would have.
Everybody was fine, but
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
that would have been scary.
That would have been scary.
But
no
could
doubt.
you imagine being on one of these trains and just seeing the mountains of walls of snow?
No, that would
be
not be a great
Surreal.
experience. Yeah.
Not until hundreds of tons of snow and rock had been blown onto the line was it considered safe to start shoveling. And then it took 24 hours to get through.
Oh my
Oh, so they
goodness.
intentionally avalanched it and then had to dig it
One
out?
goods train on Dartmoor
Look at the
got completely
train.
buried. Two other engines went out to its rescue with snowplows, but a blizzard was blowing. The drifts were 20 foot high,
That-
and they got buried too.
That is
Afterwards,
insane.
the whole lot froze solid, and
Oh
it
my
took
goodness.
80 men over a week to dig them out and get them running again.
80
Luckily,
men for a
this
week.
wasn't the main line.
That'd be back-breaking work, man.
If things
Yeah.
were bad on the railway, they were equally chaotic at airports. Planes were frozen in. At London, one runway was kept going, and flights were cancelled by the dozen. BEA lost £250,000 from cancellations.
The paralysis of our roads, railways and airports was sudden and dramatic, and the nation's resources of snowplows, shovels, rock salt, dynamite and muscle were quickly turned to getting the long-distance lorries and the mainline trains moving again. But that was cold comfort if you happened to live away from one of the Ministry of Transport's trunk roads or
Yeah,
also at the end
being
of
out
the
in the middle
British
of nowhere.
Railway branch line. For our villages and hamlets and farms, the big blizzard was the beginning of a monstrously memorable winter, of a tragic winter. By New Year's Day, at least 11 people had died as a direct result of the blizzard. At Marlborough in Wiltshire, a 60-year-old woman went out to exercise her dog. She was later found dead with the dog whimpering beside her.
Oh,
my
man.
God, just because it was so cold or what?
You had to go up in a helicopter to see the full effect of the blizzard. And the effect was total paralysis. Farmers had stopped thinking about producing to survive. It was now a question of surviving.
I mean,
to
I don't see how a
produce.
farmer could produce
For
anything in
villages and
that.
farms all over southern England, the telephone was the only remaining link with the rest of the world.
Oh. It would feel very isolating.
Yeah, if you're in the middle of nowhere, especially.
Wow.
Look at those cows.
Britain was
I
no
think they're
longer
cows.
one island surrounded by water. It was hundreds of islands surrounded by snow. Many places were running short of food. A Wiltshire orphanage with 30 children under 5 years old was cut off for 3 days and desperate
man.
for fresh milk. And trapped in the deep snow were some people needing medical supplies and help, and expectant mothers with babies due. It's no wonder the helicopters
that'd be
had the busiest
scary.
week in their
It
history.
would be. It was much easier to be cut off from everybody back then than it is nowadays.
Yeah.
Devon and Cornwall were worst hit, but people were marooned all over the country. 14 were stuck in a pub with a shortage of everything except whiskey. Others weren't so lucky. The helicopters got supplies through to the prisoners of Princetown, who by now included all the prison officers and the whole population of the village as well.
Man.
As blizzard followed blizzard, more and more farms needed supplies from helicopters. Medical supplies, fresh vegetables, baby foods, even a load of coal on one occasion. If you were snowed up in the countryside, you really were snowed up, sometimes to the eaves. People in town who complained about clearing the front path never had to undertake an engineering project on this scale.
Whoa. Oh my gosh.
But farms have to get food out as well as in. Many couldn't even get it out of the ground, and when they did, they couldn't get it away. That was when we had the vegetable shortage. Prices of cabbages and carrots and potatoes shot up. Over half the nation's broccoli crop was destroyed.
Is that potato?
Sugar beet factories closed for lack of supplies. The milk situation was nearly desperate. Dorset farmers threw away 250,000 gallons in 3 days.
Oh, that's so sad.
Because milk lorries couldn't
What a waste, man. It's unfortunate.
And of course, there were the animals. 6,000 of them on Dartmoor went without any food for 4 days. Again, only helicopters could help.
Aww. Look at them. They're so happy.
You gotta wonder, how cold do they feel? You know what I mean?
Probably pretty darn cold.
Especially if they're stuck in the snow, obviously.
That's some frozen beef.
But other animals who look less well equipped for the snow have fared better. All the deer in Richmond Park have come through, but they've had to have 3 times the normal amount of supplementary feed, and still they're getting thinner. All the same, the picture isn't one of universal dumb misery. These 3 stallions in Norfolk, for instance, had a high old time in the snow.
I love horses.
Yeah. I've never rode a horse.
You haven't? Well, let's get you on one. Yeehaw.
Chaos on the roads and railways, chaos on our farms and villages, but also chaos for British sport. The Boxing Day programme was the first to be hit. All racing was cancelled. No rugby league games took place, and only 5 First Division football matches.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Just a start. Since then, little organised
could
sport
get there.
has taken place. The Football League fixture list and the FA Cup tie programme is in a glorious, chaotic mess. The latest count of matches postponed or cancelled is approaching the 500 mark, and the season's already been extended once.
Wow.
And it looks like being extended again and again. Over 1,000 rugby games have been put off, and not a single race meeting has taken place since the snow started. And at a couple of greyhound meetings, even the electric hare froze.
Electric hair.
For ordinary winter events, conditions were as bad as they could be. All the race courses were the same, and there was no need even to go out and inspect them.
There's no way. There's literally no way.
In fact, the going was so soft, there was only one way of getting round the track at all. A few horses did manage to get some exercise, but the majority were snowed up in their stables.
Oh, man.
The big joke was football. At least it was a joke for some people. If you were a manager, a player, or a pools promoter, the laugh became increasingly more expensive as the fixtures came and went unplayed. When it came to making the draw for the cup, the proceedings had a distinct air of farce. It became a case of the winners of the match between A or B will play at home against either C or possibly D if it falls, and it didn't. Shoveling continued more as a gesture than anything else. One rugby league ground was cleared by using £500 worth of chemicals, but for most it was useless even to try. At Murrayfield, Scotland managed to play by using their new electric heating system, and the boys of Chelsea soccer team finally got themselves a game by fixing up an away match with a team in Malta.
Chelsea soccer team. Did you hear him say soccer?
Did he say soccer?
He said soccer. He's a Chelsea soccer
hear
team. Interesting. That's not something I would expect to hear from him.
Right, football.
Football, yeah.
Others had to content themselves with decisions from a panel of experts under Lord Brabazon, which decided who would have won the matches if they'd been played. But for most of us, Saturday afternoons were the time for the big dig-out. The business of finding your own car, pouring it out,
Finding
and
your
finally
car.
persuading it to move.
Oh.
Finding your
With no
car and
sport
persuading it to
as
move.
grandfather, it was a case of find the shovel and get clearing. And when the steps and the pavement and the front path and the backyard were all clear, there was still the roof. All over
The
Britain,
roof.
the streets rang to the sound of shovels.
That's interesting. I've
And
never thought about
inevitably,
that.
The big snows
I guess
of
it was heavy enough.
1963 were compared with the big snows of 1947. But now people were making comparisons of a different kind, comparisons of adversity, comparisons with the Blitz. Mr. John Pedder, the postmaster at snowbound Lynmouth in Devon, said this: "There's a real touch of wartime spirit, a tremendous community feeling. People who've been enemies for years are chatting with each other again."
Wow.
A single week was bringing more stories of grim endurance and courageous rescue than ordinarily in a whole year.
Have to rely on each other
On
again.
Yeah.
Dartmoor, a party of soldiers had a very narrow escape from freezing to death. 6 young recruits with only 3 months' army experience had been sent out on a map-reading exercise. It very soon turned into a survival test. All of them were frozen stiff and had severe frostbite. It
Oh.
had been quite a lesson, but not in map
Oh
reading.
my goodness.
Helicopters were also used to rescue 2 old ladies on Exmoor. Both of them were over 75, and for a long time they refused to go. The RAF had been supplying them with food, and they could see no reason to budge. But in the end, they got so bored with their own company, they decided to move after all, if only for the trip. In Monmouthshire, there was another urgent job for helicopters. Here, it was to pick up electricians and carry them and all their gear out to one of the most desolate spots in the country. The high-voltage cables use great lengths of rope, which could be run out, attached to the helicopter, and flown over the cables. With the rope looped over the cables, the men set out to walk, pulling the loop and knocking the ice off as they went. It was a long and bitterly cold operation, but it cleared the wire and kept the steelworks going. The longest walk of all, or at any rate what must have seemed like the longest walk, was from Fylingdales. This was the scene of the great airlift, but before the helicopters arrived, 100 stranded civilians took to the moors and walked back to civilization.
Is that a trail? Is that a road? What is what is
I
that?
don't know. I mean, you can't really tell anymore.
You can't.
It was only 4 miles, but the drifts were 14 feet deep and the snow was
Holy.
very soft. By
14
the time
feet
they reached the
deep.
railway, most of them were done in.
Yeah, I would say.
That would be a very exhausting walk.
Luckily, the line was still open, and they reached home by train. With racing cancelled, the betting shops were as deserted as the courses, but not in Doncaster. Here, a bookie had the brilliant idea of running his own races on the premises. The mice did show a tendency to fall off the course, but the money changed hands, which, after all, is the only part that matters.
By about the end of the first week in January, the story began to change. Up till then, it had been the story of snow. Now it turned into the story of ice. We'd already had blizzards
That's
on
worse.
an almost unheard of scale. Now the unrelenting frost.
So everything we've just heard about was only up until the first week of January.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
all we've seen
And
so
we
far.
know that they were talking about the beginning all the way. They were in February and this was still
Yes.
going on. So, like, they're not even halfway. Yeah.
Oh my
Because it
gosh.
started on, like, the 26th, but roughly 24th,
Boxing
24th or
Day-ish.
26th, depending on where you were.
Yeah.
And if we're, oh my goodness. So they're, like, just getting going on this, through this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at how big those chunks of ice
Yeah,
are.
that's massive.
Nothing thawed, nothing melted, and the frost went deeper and deeper into the earth.
The roads and railways had had their turn. Now it was the waterways.
Oh,
Ice
wow.
2 feet thick on the River Yare
2
stopped shipping
feet
between Norwich
thick.
and Great Yarmouth. The car ferry service to Fishbourne in the Isle of Wight was stopped because of dangerous pack ice. At Torquay, the
Wow.
sea froze as it crashed over the promenade.
Thick.
The channel froze at Dover and Eastbourne, and across at Dunkirk, the ice stretched for 5 miles. so it
5
looked as if we were going to
miles?
be joined with Europe, whether de Gaulle liked it or not. At
Wow.
Windsor, a man was seen riding a bicycle on the frozen Thames.
Oh
Kingston,
my
the
goodness. He was riding a bicycle
At Windsor,
on
a
the
man
Thames.
was
Oh
seen
my
riding
goodness.
a bicycle on the frozen Thames.
Wow. That's amazing.
I mean, I guess if the ocean was frozen, it makes sense
Yeah.
the Thames would be frozen.
There's
but-
less moving
Yeah,
water,
wow.
but just the idea of the sea, the ocean being at all frozen, just is so mind-boggling to me because it's always moving. So the fact that it would be frozen sections,
it would
just
take a lot.
it would. That's
Very
amazing.
harsh conditions.
Very harsh. Look at this. It's incredible. I don't know if I would trust it personally, but I wasn't there. So if it's been frozen for a long time,
Seeing
then
everybody else do it,
yeah.
I wouldn't be
At
first.
Kingston,
No.
the Thames froze from bank to bank for the
Oh
first
my
time
God.
since 1895.
Wow.
At Oxford, one Charles Easter drove his Austin 7 across the Thames to work.
That's the river? Oh my
He
goodness.
drove his car
Wow.
to
The first
work.
car river rally ever was held on the Thames at Bablock High. A school of mullet
River
was
rally.
frozen in the ice at Southampton Dock.
Wait, what is that?
Provided a freshly chilled picnic for some lucky gulls.
Oh.
But it was surely those two commuters skating to
That's
work in
horrifying.
Leicestershire that provided the picture of the big freeze.
That is crazy.
That is a
The
picture right
canals
there.
froze first, just about all of them. The Grand Union was a strip of ice running from Brentford to the Midlands. But the bulk of our water transport goes along natural
canals.
waterways, and most of the busy ones stayed navigable. Just.
Wonder if anyone lived on narrowboats back then.
But many rivers froze
bet
up
some
along the
people did.
edges of the navigable channel. On some, the ice was 2 feet thick, and an iceberg 10 feet high was sighted at Greenwich.
Wait,
It
what?
grew so cold that diesel
An
oil
iceberg
froze
10 feet
solid
high.
and beer and lemonade bottles burst.
What?
As the bitter weather went on, even the coast and harbours started to ice up. At several places, the sea froze, sometimes for 100 feet out from the shore. There was pack
That's
ice in
crazy.
most
Look at that.
On the Humber, it forced a lightship adrift, and there were sheets of ice in the docks at Chatham, Liverpool, Bristol, and
It's like
Southampton.
the Arctic.
It
was like
does,
a
that's
polar
wild.
landscape.
That is just bizarre.
It really is. I mean, it just.
Ships at their moorings
Wow.
were frozen in everywhere, and some underway stuck fast. At Walton, lifeboatmen couldn't get to their boat for the first time in 40 years. Car ferry services were cancelled, and so was the London-Paris train. The coastline of Britain was like an enormous deep freeze.
Looks like it.
That's crazy, man.
It was about then that we learnt that the Soviet Antarctic base in Queen Maud Land had reported temperatures of 39 degrees, 13 degrees warmer than London. For the first time in living memory, the Medway froze right across from Chatham to Rochester, with ice 2 feet thick. The Navy had to use an
2 feet
icebreaker to
thick.
keep
That's
Chatham
insane.
Dockyard free.
2 feet. I mean, like, that's.
Deep.
Yeah.
Of course, not everyone found the ice a menace. What you lost on the football pitch, you gained on the ice rink. Suddenly, Britain had become a winter sports resort. For most of us, the sport was improvised and unofficial. But in Lincolnshire, the freeze made the Professional Ice Race Championship of Great Britain possible for the first time since
That would have been
1959.
cool.
That would be cool.
Literally.
Yeah.
At Ruislip, the water skiers managed to adapt themselves to the new conditions. With a car instead of a motorboat to do the towing, a new sport was born. A pointless one, but new.
I love it.
It was also perfect weather for another, more orthodox winter sport, ice yachting.
Ice yachting. That looks fun.
It does. You get some speed.
Yeah. That's so cool. I want to ride one.
If you hadn't got an ice yacht of your own, you could always adapt a sailing dinghy.
I love this.
So it's easy to see that it wasn't all bad. It wasn't
Right.
all like just horrible conditions and everybody upset. A lot of people were actually having a good time during this. As long as they had,
beginning,
as long as they had their
know.
food and their, everything they needed, they were fine. And they could go out and do some things that they normally never could do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've ever been. We've had some cold winters, but I just can't imagine like being down at the ocean and seeing it freeze.
You know.
It was so hard that for only the second time since 1935, the great curling bonspiel, the grand match, could be held on the Lake of Menteith.
That's a
There were nearly
lake.
2,000 competitors. Motorcycle scrambling was one of the few outdoor sports that could carry on
Oh,
uninterrupted
my
by
word.
the
Can you
weather.
imagine riding a motorcycle in that?
But it also gave it a new interest.
Oh!
As the cold got deeper still, the landscape of Britain took on a totally new appearance. One result of the deep and enduring frost
beautiful.
was to produce fairyland sights no one had ever seen, and no one may ever see again. This waterfall on Exmoor hasn't looked like this in living memory.
Wow. That is beautiful.
Really beautiful.
Perhaps even more spectacular are the Aysgarth Falls, and while even this side may not reconcile you to this winter, at least it's one of the few items on the credit side.
That is some cold water.
Oh my goodness. Take a shower. It freezes as soon as it hits the ground. You see
Oh
that?
my goodness. Wow, that is rushing.
In other parts of the country, things weren't quite so beautiful. Chaos turned into crisis. It soon became clear that we simply couldn't cope with the cold spell of this severity and duration. Salt, water, gas, electricity, paraffin, milk, milk bottles, vegetables, coal, candles, disposable nappies, all of these were difficult or impossible to get at some time or other.
And the water crisis is by no means over yet. In London alone, the Metropolitan Water Board have had well over 3,000 burst mains reported since the cold weather started.
That's not good.
In Birmingham, hundreds of underground service pipes froze solid, and in the Manchester area, the number of bursts of all kinds approached the 200,000 mark. In many parts of the country, water rationing was the order of the day, and the emergency water tanker became a familiar sight.
Wow.
But for thousands of people, this was the
Waterboard.
only supply of water there was, apart from melted snow. In other places, tanks were set up in the street. But even they froze up, and you needed hot water to thaw out the tap before you could get cold water to make hot water with. And after all this, when you found enough buckets and kettles, carried them along the street, filled them up and carted them back again, you still couldn't do the washing up because the waste pipe was frozen and the water wouldn't run away. And the only ones who didn't mind were the children. School lavatories froze, and that was the end of school. In parts of South Wales, even the 11 plus was put off. 120 schools in Hampshire never opened at all after the holidays, and in London, over 20,000 children stayed at home. Down every street, in every town, the same plea was heard. Please send a plumber.
But the worst failure was in electricity. The grid simply couldn't deliver the power fast enough. We got used to power cuts, at least in the London area, during the power workers go slow early in January. But once that unofficial dispute had been settled, we assumed, wrongly as it turned out, that there was going to be enough electricity to go around everywhere. It soon became apparent that someone had underestimated our electricity requirements even for a normal winter, and the buck of blame was passed pretty smartly around, almost as quickly as the electricity was going through the grid itself during those frenetic days.
So one thing I'm curious about, back in 1963, I wonder what the majority of people were heating with. Were they heating with, we heard paraffin and oil, kerosene, I guess. I wonder what, if you're
Coal.
not, yeah, but if you're not heating with electricity on average, like the average person not having central heat and air, for example,
True.
what is the big reason for the increase in
Electricity?
if they're not heating with them? Now, I'm guessing some people are.
Well, people are at home more than they were normally.
I mean, I guess that's true, but then again, office buildings would need less electricity then, so you would think it'd be offset some. I don't know. I'm
That's
just
a good
curious.
question, because it wasn't central heating.
Here, I mean, like, nowadays, modern times, it makes sense that during the winter, everybody starts heating with their, electricity that's run off of, or the heat that's run off of electricity. It makes sense. But if it had a period of time where I think a lot less people were actually using electricity to heat, unless they had, I suppose, plug-in, like, heaters.
Kerosene heaters and...
Yeah, something that plugged in, yeah. I'm not sure.
The Electricity Board admitted that they'd had to make massive disconnections in the southeast, and practically no one in the country had full power right through the crisis.
Wow.
The electricity people's advertising slogan, "Plug in electric living, that's all you have to do," had by now a pretty hollow ring. In Piccadilly, the lights went out for the first time since 1949. Hospitals were cut off without warning. Canterbury Cathedral blacked out in the middle of a service. Shops and offices kept going by candlelight. As the load increased, the supply dropped. And then came the worst. Electricity cables from Britain's largest power station were short-circuited by freezing fog.
Wow.
Men worked
Freezing
non-stop for
fog?
72 hours
Freezing
to clear
fog.
the ice and get the supply going again.
Wow.
And of course, when electrical power was cut, everyone turned to gas. Many people, in fact, kept their ovens on and open for heating. Faithful, constant gas.
Maybe more people were heating with electricity at that point than I realized.
Than you thought.
Yeah, I mean, 1963, I feel like in that time period was the cusp of when things were changing over a lot. And so maybe a lot of people had already switched over to heating with electricity.
Possibly, yeah.
And maybe that's the reason. Of course, also people are at home and they're more often, they're maybe cooking more during the day and
Using
stuff. So
more.
maybe that's it too.
You can rely on gas, the ad said. But alas, we couldn't rely on gas. Gas couldn't cope either. The demand for gas rose everywhere. And where they could deliver, they couldn't keep up with the demand. If you wanted coal for the fire, you had to go and fetch it for yourself.
Wow.
Coal for the fire.
Whew.
Reserves at the
Heavy.
coal yard shrunk. The solid frozen heaps got smaller and the demand became more desperate. But the coal couldn't get through. Coal for gas for industry, coal to run the railway engines to pull the coal trains, coal to make electricity, and after that, coal for the ordinary consumer, the old and the sick, the ones who depended on coal to keep warm. And when the coal did arrive, it was frozen solid in the trucks and had to be thawed out before it could be unloaded.
Oh my
Wow.
The heaps
word.
were hard as rock, but valuable as gold.
I didn't realize coal could freeze.
Yeah, me neither. It must be talking about
Introduced a coal
it got wet and it was
20
frozen
special
within
trains
water.
carrying 650 tons each shuttled backward and forward to the south of England. Emergency lorries ran through the ice and snow in a never-ending stream. As a coal board official said, we were on a knife edge.
Crisis, crisis, crisis. What would have happened to the country if the freeze had gone on for another week? We shall mercifully, we hope, never know. On January the 25th, warmer air moved in from the Atlantic to cover Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. And by the morning of the 26th, covered the whole of Britain. And that was the thaw.
And it's going to be a mess.
Slush could look so beautiful.
Yeah.
Slush,
People
yeah.
even started to see their lawns for the first time since Christmas. Of course, it brought out the bursts. This one closed London Southampton Row, but after being frozen stiff for 35 days, it was a small price to pay. It wasn't even the fast, dangerous thaw we'd been warned of. It was slow and mild. It seemed too good to be true. It was too good to be true.
No. Oh,
Man, that
3
was
days
cold.
after the thaw, the freeze was back with a vengeance.
No.
The blizzards followed. Again,
Oh
more
no!
snow?
And the worst part is, it thawed,
So now it's a
melted
sheet of ice
underneath whatever new snow's falling. Oh, that's not good.
the West Country took the first onslaught, but Wales caught a packet as well.
Oh, that'd be awful.
Yeah, absolutely.
When the blizzard stopped, we took
My
stock again
goodness.
and found it was worse than ever. On the 8th of February, 70 people were marooned in cars and lorries around Dartmoor. If they'd gone by train, they wouldn't have fared much better. 30 people were
goodness.
trapped in a train on Dartmoor too. 50 in Argyllshire.
Look
and
at that guy
another
walking.
18 in
Yeah.
Ayrshire. The London train was 8 hours late to Edinburgh. London to Stranraer passengers were 17.5 hours late. All the same, rail travellers were at least spared the ultimate
Was his hood
indignity.
up when it happened?
Oh, no.
We thought it was over and his hood was up. Oh.
All over Britain, motorists and highway authorities started digging out yet again. This time, it was worse than ever before. Again, 200 main roads were blocked. And now, not 90,000, but 130,000 miles of highway were obstructed by snow,
Man.
most of
Man.
them paralysed. Scotland and Cornwall were completely cut off.
Look at that
I know.
car.
I just saw that.
Again,
Wonder how
there
that would
were
be to pull.
large-scale rescue operations. The chief one was the relief of Whitton Down. This party of Royal Marines from Lympstone were digging their way to the village where 100 motorists and lorry drivers who'd abandoned their vehicles had taken shelter from the blizzard. When it was over, 5 feet of snow had fallen, and it was known they were
5
desperately
feet
short
of
of
snow
food
had
and
fallen.
blankets, and that the power had failed. Whitton Down wasn't equipped to take on 100 cold and hungry visitors. The Marines couldn't get through on the first day, and nor could the snowplows. It was learnt that most of the castaways were spending the night in the village schoolroom. Next day, the snowplows were at it again. By the time the clearance squads got through, 100 drivers had had a night to remember. It was a night when the southwest broke another weather record. Snow on the ground for 45 consecutive days.
Man.
But by now,
My
the hard-hit
goodness.
southwesterners were being warned of another new danger, a quick thaw with high winds and floods. The floods came.
Oh.
Oh, that would be bad.
The river near Boscastle in Cornwall burst its banks.
Oh,
and a wall
no.
of water 4 feet high smashed through the village.
4
Flood
feet.
warnings were out all over Devon and Cornwall. The blizzard
that's
was still
awful.
raging in Scotland, and in Boscastle, they'd have willingly had it back.
Oh,
in exchange
no.
for this.
It's literally up to their over the doorstep, I
Of
guess.
course, the freeze has had its lighter moments as well as its tragic ones. And in the years to come, most of us will have some kind of story to tell about the great winter of 1963.
Sounds like it.
But it was left to the wife of the Minister of Power, Mrs. Richard Wood, to supply the bathos of the big freeze. I refer, of course, to the tale of the black woolly pants. While her husband was bothering
Tale of
himself
the
with power
black
cuts,
woolly-
gas rationing, and coal shortages, Mrs. Wood was quoted as saying that English people don't wear enough clothes. And she allowed herself to be photographed in black fishnet tights and black woolly pants with a little bit of white trimming at the knee.
The big freeze has happened.
How scandalous.
It takes its place in our history, but building and construction work has, of course, been at a standstill.
I let a lot of
In all,
businesses were to stand
the
still.
interim estimate of the physical costs of the nation is said to be 150 to 200 million pounds,
Yeah.
and many believe this to be an
That's
underestimate.
Billions.
But what the
There's got to be
big freeze
billions
has
today.
shown is that the country is simply not geared to meet an abnormally savage winter. Techniques of snow clearance don't seem to have advanced much since the Ark, let alone since 1947, the last major freeze-up. Many authorities still don't stockpile much rock salt, although a process has been developed for storing it in the open without it caking. Again, most county and borough surveyors are still saying that the expense of mechanized snow clearance isn't justified, although the cost of the most sophisticated piece of
We
equipment
just saw
is
that
tiny
mentioned
compared to the
on
millions
another weather
this
video
plan already
like
cost
a
us.
month
big
ago,
snow
whenever
plough
it
and blower,
was.
for instance, costs £7,000.
And what good has come out of the big freeze? So far, at least, one piece of parliamentary legislation is in the offing, and that is a long-last compulsory freeze-free domestic water system, interior plumbing, lagging, and so on.
That would be good.
But only for new homes. It won't affect the 14 million old houses.
Oh.
Apart from that, we can only hope that the public and local authorities who are caught with their pants down will pull their socks up, if you see what we mean. For the rest of us, it's probably cured us of dreaming of a white Christmas for the next 10 years or so.
Yeah, I bet.
And for the history book, there's one more spectacularly cold winter to set beside the famous ones, like AD 764, 1684, 1740, 1881, 1940, and 1947. During the day, it's been snowing in most of southern England and Wales, and we're told it's freezing too. But at least we've been through the big freeze of 1963. Part 1.
Part 1.
Wow. Guys, this was incredible. This was very, very interesting. It was interesting what they said there at the end that they were talking about Britain really didn't have the means to take care of a snowstorm like this, an ice storm like this. The scale of it, because not enough plows, not enough rock salt and all that stuff. But it's interesting that we just saw, I don't know if it was the Beast from the East or which winter video it was that we reacted to, but they were talking about the same thing in modern times as well.
Yeah.
But it just makes sense. It's like you guys, you go through years where it's pretty mild for a long period of time, then you just get slammed like for 1 year.
Yeah, it's not consistent enough to really do much about it.
Yeah, it's like here we get hit generally with a decent sized snow or ice storm every year.
Yeah.
Not usually on this scale, mind you.
I don't think there's many places that could have handled.
No, I don't even.
If any.
Yeah, I don't think many places get anything like this hardly ever.
Actual Siberia, maybe.
Yeah, like that would be hard for any area. Even an area that's used to getting pretty decent sized winter storms every year would have a hard time dealing with sounded like a month and a half of just straight up frozen tundra.
Yeah, I get why you guys wanted us to check this out because it was a much bigger scale than I thought.
Yeah, and it
lasted a lot longer.
I was just thinking, okay, it was like a big snowstorm. It lasted a week or two, and then it was done. But no, this was like a weeks and weeks of just everything being shut down. Very dangerous if you were outside of like in the city limits, I'm thinking.
And weren't prepared. I mean, who could be prepared for something like
You can't prepare for a month and a half, generally speaking. If you were on a farm, maybe you had a bunch of canned goods and stuff like that, but most people did not have that. And so you're still reliant on, the government somehow making sure everybody gets their food stuff. Again, especially out. I think the cities were better prepared because they had a lot more food there.
Yeah, and you don't have to go as far to get it. But,
that's the thing. Yeah. But incredible, guys. I love learning about things like this. So if you have any other suggestions, whether it's more winter-related stuff, maybe 1947 was bad. Maybe there's some other ones since then that we haven't checked out, like '09 and The Beast from the East. Or if there are, massive summer storms, I just like looking at weather stuff. I find it very interesting. So if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments, guys.
And if you lived through this or have stories of family members, we'd love to hear about it in the comments.
Yeah. But anyways, guys, I think that's it for us today. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow us on our journey. Until next time, peace.
Bye.